What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about the Pulse USD price and revisiting some of the analysis we did last week in this video here of Pulsechain's 200-day moving average, 150-day moving average, and the interplay between price and both of those moving averages. Make sure to leave a thumbs up, give us a subscribe. We're almost at 12,100 followers. Leave a comment down below on which type of analysis video you'd like to see next, and check out the sale on Cypherus.io, where I help you build your dream website in a matter of days or weeks, such as the newest Pulsechain Block Explorer, which I built completely by myself, lightbeam.xyz. Both links in the description below. Let's get into a little bit of the discussion we had last week and how that has played out. So again, if you go to the channel, you can see that we have this video titled Pulsechain 200-day moving average, and we pretty much explain what happened in these two regions back here, late 2024 or late 2023, early 2024, as well as this sort of move in late 2024 over here. And looking at where we are now, right? So when I did the video back 4 days ago, we were getting sort of rejected, a little 10% rejection from orange. And we were talking about how, and I'll just review this real quickly, because again, you can check out the video if you want the full recap. But the general idea is we get a rejection on orange, we get a rejection on red, we find support on orange, and then we run. And then over here, back in September of 2024, we got a mini rejection off orange, again, not as pronounced as this dip of October 2023. And then we find a rejection on our red. This rejection lasted a few times, right? We got rejected a bunch of times by red. And then similarly to over here, we got some support on orange. This was a double bottom, more or less, whereas this was just a singular sort of V bottom back here. But then again, what happened after? We ran. So when we made the video 4 days ago, we were talking about this area right here. This is where we were. So we got a rejection off orange, and we were comparing whether it was going to be a more pronounced dip like back here in 2023 or a smaller dip like back here in 2024. And it looks like immediately we just got that small dip. So it was more similar to 2024, where we got rejected about 10%, nothing huge. And then we got above orange and started getting rejected by red. So where are we now? Well, we didn't come up fully to red, because that's about 4.6 on the pulse price. We went up to about 4.4, the high 4.4s, almost 4.5. So you could say that's close enough, but in reality, we touched it both times in both of these scenarios that I'm pointing out in the past. We actually did touch red before coming back down to orange, finding support, and running harder. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that not every time is the same, clearly. First time we saw this pattern play out, we had a 30% dip, oscillated around orange, and then again, rejection off red, yada yada, orange, boom. This time over here, again, it was a 10% dip. We got rejected off red, double bottom off orange, and then we ran. So as you can tell, there are slight differences every single time. And I'm just emphasizing that because it doesn't need to play out exactly the same, although I find it useful and entertaining to look at patterns and see if they repeat in the history of the pulse chart. So we didn't quite make it to red this time, like I said, but that's not to say we can't make it to red, right? So some could say that our rejection off of red already happened. Some would say because we got close enough. Others would say no, we still need to make it to red, which is 4.6. And again, that's just like a 2% higher high than what we did here. So it is possible. But what I do like to see is that we came down to orange, had a little bounce, came back down to it, and a slight bounce off this wick, but we're still above orange, which is nice to see. Now, do we need to hold it? Who knows? Last time, or not last time, but the time before last time, which was late 2023, we actually went below orange a few times, right? On this first rejection, once, twice, 3 times, 4, 5 local lows, right? Just tiny lows, daily lows beneath orange. After, I should specify only 4 dips with local lows beneath orange after this dip, right? After this dip. So after this dip, we had 2 bottoms at orange. After this dip, we had 4 bottoms below orange. right? So we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we already have our first bottom on orange. So it's playing out similarly. Again, we don't know if it's going to be a double bottom, a triple bottom, a quadruple bottom, if it's going to grind on it for a month or two, whether we're actually going to go beneath it or oscillate around it like we did back in late 2023, right? It's anyone's guess. But I do like to see that the pattern in general is playing out very similarly to these past two times. And if we look at the time component a little bit, we can tell, and I already did the math, this time when we formed this pattern, this was about a 2-month period where we were oscillating around this moving average, and some could say being squeezed between these two moving averages, between red and orange. Over here, it was less of a volatile oscillation above or below the moving averages. It was more so tightly constrained to between the moving averages. Price tightened up, and then we exploded. So again, what will happen this time? It's anyone's guess, but we do have a similar price tightening action around both of these moving averages. And as we were talking about the time component, the first time took about 2 months of price action squeezed around there. Second time, it took about 1 month of price action squeezing around there before we had our rally. And depending on where you count it, you could say we've been there since May 13th. So we're already roughly 2 weeks in to the sort of price action oscillating around these moving averages or being squeezed between them. So if it were, let's say, a month, right, of price action being squeezed between here, that would put us around mid-June or so for price to break out to new highs. If it takes 2 months, like it did this first time, we could see price action still stay squeezed between the two moving averages and not fully break out until mid-July. So what would that look like? You know, it could look like anything, but it could look like that. Up to red, down to orange, maybe we form a double bottom, maybe a fake out beneath it, above, support, and then these moving averages have just tightened up a little bit, and then we just start our rally. Or it could be a little more bullish, where we just have a double bottom around here, maybe a single bottom, come back to red, and break out, you know, in mid-June. So again, it's anyone's guess. These are just patterns. I know this is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Everything I say here is purely for entertainment purposes only. But I just find this fascinating. And you can do this sort of analysis with other moving averages as well. Just to finish off with this one, if you check out the last video that we made a few days ago, we were showing our targets on whether it repeats a rally similar to this, 3 to 4x, similar to this, about a 2x, and where those prices, where those rallies would take us if they were similar to either, which put us around the, right, if it was just a double, it would put us around, again, you have to watch that video. I'm just kind of repeating that video a little bit, but just to finish off, it would be around here if we did just a rally like we did here in late 2024. But if it was a giga rally like we saw in early 2024, then that could put us as high as the 1.8 level. So anywhere in between here, it's anyone's guess. It's and I would assume, like I said in that last video, that this sort of right below SAC rate, 4 zeros and a 9, would provide some temporary resistance. But let's see what Bitcoin does. We'll see what Ethereum does, and we'll keep an eye on the broader macroeconomic conditions to really get a feel for the sentiment of the markets, and specifically altcoins, right? Coins that aren't Bitcoin, even just Ethereum. Seeing Ethereum start outperforming Bitcoin continuously, and that would obviously be good for the Pulsechain ecosystem. If you watched the last video, I explained that. So you can do this with multiple moving averages. You could look at EMAs. I know some people prefer EMAs. You could do a blend of an EMA and a normal moving average. You could do whatever you want, right? Like for example, if you look at, I don't know, the 150 and the 200 EMAs. Well, that tells a little bit of a different story. You can see the same analysis I'm giving from a slightly different angle. So if you look at the 150 and the 200 EMA, what do you see? Well, it looks like price wasn't being squeezed between the two moving averages, but was just finding them as a sort of resistance band, right? This whole region right here, resistance on this band, where the band is simply, a band composed of both moving averages. Similar, late 2024, what happened? This band was acting as resistance. And the time components are roughly similar, where this back here was 2 months, this was 1 month, found the band as resistance. Once we found support or got above it, it was go time. Back here was go time for a couple months. Back here was go time for about a month. And interestingly enough, I hadn't pointed this out in the last video, but when the rally was 2 months, double the 1 month length here, we actually rallied twice as hard. We went 4x from this low as opposed to 2x from this low. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe you could say that depending on the length of the rally, that's how far we're going to go. That's a little hard to quantify in real time though, because it's obviously like at any given moment, if you're up 2x in a month, well, you're like, well, we could go another 2x in the next month. But if you had said that here, you would have been wrong. If you had said that here, you would have been right. So it's anyone's guess. Again, you have to take into consideration other aspects of the market, such as the Ethereum price and macroeconomic conditions, movement of big wallets on chain, and all of that, of course. But where does that put us now? If we're looking from the lens of the 150 and 200 day EMAs, well, then we're in that area already, right? You can say we've been in there for, again, about 2 weeks. And this time it only lasted a month. This time it lasted 2 months. So the time analysis is exactly the same as the previous simple moving averages, where it'd be mid-June or mid-July where we could see a breakout. Again, this is all speculation. I'm just looking at patterns, but it tells the same story as the simple moving averages. And I will be doing this with Pulsechain as well in the future, because that one tells a slightly more interesting story, a slightly more bullish story. So I'll talk about that in the next video. But for now, let's keep an eye on these moving averages. Let's keep an eye on how they interact relative to price action, the broader market, and hopefully, because I love Pulse and I'd love to see it go up, I hold Pulse, full disclaimer, hopefully we can see this run up to the 6 levels, 7 levels, 8 levels, and then from there, if we reach that, we can talk about the conditions on if we're ready to break out and actually start forming an uptrend as opposed to this downtrend that we've seen with lower highs, and lower highs since launch, right? 3 zeros and a 3, 3 zeros and a 2, roughly 3 zeros and a 1. So if we can break over that 3 zeros and a 1 level, well, then that's a whole different story. We'll talk about that when we get there. In the meantime, thank you for watching the video. I appreciate the comments, the likes, subscriptions, and all that. Let's get to 12,100 subscribers. Again, check out cyphers.io. I build awesome websites very quickly, very comprehensive. We can do anything, right? Portfolio sites, block explorers, dashboards, e-commerce sites, whatever. So again, thanks for checking out the video. Next video, we'll probably be talking about Pulsechain. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.